Now let's get into our second live case study. This is a different scenario where tenants are staying in place, so we're working to retrofit a fully occupied building. Very challenging to thread that needle, and a different set of incentives and programs came into play. We'll be focusing on Retirement Housing Foundation's Angeles Plaza. It's the largest HUD-assisted property west of the Mississippi, so no small undertaking. It is 100% occupied, 98%, effectively 100%. So very difficult in terms of project execution. We're fortunate to have Stuart Hartman from RHF with us today, as well as Mark Drake from SoCalGas, Richard Villaseñor from Telecu, they're a contractor to SoCalGas, as well as Chikizi Nzewi with MCOR Mesa Energy, also a contractor that was involved in the project. So with that, we'll jump right in. Stuart, why did RHF decide to undertake this comprehensive retrofit? What was the driver for the project?
We actually had three reasons why we wanted to undertake this retrofit. The first was that we wanted to reduce our carbon footprint. Secondarily, we were looking for reliability of a new hot water and heating system for the property. And the third driver was it was free.
Mark Drake with SoCalGas. How do you engage with large customers like RHF?
So how we do it, when we engaged retirement housing, we do a little bit of homework on how many of those properties fall in our service area. We put together a list of how large they are, what year it was built, because that's indicative of how many upgrades the property might need. So we create sort of a loading order. We pull the gas usage on those properties prior to meeting with Stuart, and we set up a meeting to go through. This team is really dedicated to the entire portfolio. So we know we're an inch deep and a mile wide. So we know all the programs and services at SoCalGas. We know how to enroll them quickly. And we know how to tap into the subject content experts for the deeper dive inside the gas company when you need engineering support, when you need a meter set, all those ancillary services that are hard for a customer to get through the red tape. So in this case, let us present the low cost, no cost programs to you. And we want to schedule those with you to be a low impact on your facilities team, especially your tenants. We want to avoid, turning off the gas, at any, during the winter. And it's a relationship where it's integrated and we try to do it collectively, build that trust and then layer on. And we also bring in the muni partners, LADWP. We were able to overlay it at the same time to have the lowest impact on the facility, do everything simultaneously.
So if I could distill that down, essentially SoCalGas is for certain large customers acting almost as an owner's rep, helping to provide a single point of contact to organize multiple programs that could come into relevance depending on the scope. Is that about right? Fantastic.
And Dave, just to jump in on that, a good point there is they also did the engineering, which was really important for us, because when we got that package, it was fully engineered. And what that means is as a contractor, we're not guessing as to what's wanted. We really understand the full extent of the scope. And that way we can give Stuart very crisp numbers and SoCal gets very crisp numbers so that, we understand exactly what's expected of us. But again, Mark mentioned trust. That comes down to us trusting that they've done a really good job in terms of all their homework, so that when we bid on that job, put the numbers out there, we know that we can rely on the work they've done.
Mm-hmm. That's a great point. Going back, this sounds like a lot of investment of resources and time, certainly by SoCalGas. What kind of commitments do you look for from the customers in exchange for this type of support, Mark?
Well, the investment in time is considerable upfront, but it's really a lasting relationship. We've been able to do, with our DWP partnership, introduce and make low flow toilets, refrigerators at Angeles Plaza. 400 refrigerators were put in for tenants, common area lighting. So we're able to facilitate that investment of time really delivers, bottom line gas, electric, and water savings. Just on the gas side, the Angeles Plaza project delivered, the owner saving is estimated to be on the gas $150,000 a year off the operating costs.
Wow, it's very significant, especially it's a tough business in terms of margins. Stuart, this is obviously far from the first project you guys have done here in Southern California and working with SoCal Gas, but Angeles Plaza being a big trophy asset, what had been preventing you before they unleashed Adrian on you from pursuing projects at a particular site?
Great question, Dave. And before I give you the answer on it, I am just for others that may be watching this, Angeles Plaza is 1,093 units of senior housing. We have roughly 1,400 residents living in this one community, and so some of the challenges that we looked at that limited us over the course of time had to do with getting people that were dedicated, that could pull together a comprehensive program. So having people that could coordinate on our behalf and talk with other utilities, having people that could sit down and put together a comprehensive plan, and then also put together a roadmap to show us how these various programs could be funded. Those were things that on our own, we simply didn't have the time nor the expertise to address all of the things that had to be taken care of. So again, my hat's off to all the parties involved. They all did a phenomenal job.
And I want to come back to that because that's an important point, but I want to pull Richard into the conversation. Richard's with Telecoup, and your team was tasked with enrolling residents and then delivering the in-unit upgrades. Can you tell us about that process and any challenges you had there?
Sure. So with the project that large, we decided to do presentations in their community rooms. We could gather a bunch of people together, and we did that for several days. But the biggest challenge we had, like Stuart said, was the language barrier. But with the staff at Angeles Plaza, they provided us with interpreters who were able to explain the program to the tenants, explain the process, the income qualifying part of it. We had all the measures there, so they were able to see, touch, and feel the measures. But without the help of the RHF team over there, it would have been really difficult to enroll that many customers at one time. They all have to income qualify for the program. They have to show proof of income. And so we had to get through those barriers of people wanting to show their income, which is always an issue in this program. But we got through that. And we enrolled most of the people through presentations over several weeks. But after that, we still had a bunch of people that did enroll. So our team went in there and we knocked on doors in every building to make sure that we gave everybody the opportunity at least to say yes or no. And we had a pretty good success rate in that property, which we did almost 95% of the enrollment in that building, which was pretty big.
So engaging 95% of the residents in a property this large sounds high. How does that compare with a typical ESAP engagement?
Typically, it's not that high. Typically, Adrian and I work together. We do a lot of large portfolios, but typically we're in the 70 to 80% range. And one of the things that we find out that's key to the process of this is when upper management is on board, like Stuart was, and the word gets down to the staff and to the site managers, we have such a better, participation rate than we do if they say, hey, you got to go deal with the site manager. If he says no, well, then you can't do it. So that was a key. Stuart, from the top, putting the word down to his team. The RHF team was amazing. They helped us all the way through the whole process. And, so we got to give credit where credit's due.
We talked a little bit, Mark did, about the measures that you actually installed in these units. How long on average per unit did it take to do that installation?
The enrollment process is about 30 minutes. The installation of the gas and electric measures was about 30, 45 minutes per unit. So
really quick. So in contrast to our other case study, we're not talking about relocating families.
Oh, no.
Yeah. This is a light touch. Just want to highlight the contrast between the two different program models that we're highlighting today.
Absolutely.
And that all ties to schedule. And I want to go back to something Mark mentioned about kind of the urgency to thread the needle and get this work done before the cooling season. Chikizi, can you talk about how you guys worked together to, once you had the successful bid, to actually go about buying that equipment, getting it to the site and getting it installed and cutting it over without without risking residents being without heat and water?
That was one of the big challenges of the project. I think something we focused on very early on with the building engineer and with Stuart's team to really make sure that we have very good understanding of where everything was so that we would not have any problems. So they actually two separate systems. There's the heating hot water system, which actually was easier because we did that during the summer. And so as long as we were done and finished before the shoulder cold months and the winter months, okay? And so that was a really big key there. Obviously, Stuart mentioned earlier that once it's heating season, they have to have heating. That's non-negotiable, right? And so for us, we really ensured that we ordered all the equipment. There were 6 boilers, right? And some in the basement, some on the roof. So quite a diverse amount of equipment. And these are large pieces of equipment. So we made sure we ordered them in time, got them to the site, and then began that process of installation. For the water heaters, it was actually a bit more challenging because obviously domestic hot water, you're using that every day, right? And so we actually did them in a phase system where in each building, we would have one piece of equipment, would cut that over, bring in the new one, do the piping, and we use the same team. So once we kind of got a roll going, then we were just knocking them out building by building. But it was really critical to make sure that, we left a backup in one building in case there was a challenge when we did the water heater turnover, and then just continue working through that. So again, understanding upfront what the client's issues were, what the challenges were, really helped us up in setting up the team and then doing the workflow to get things finished and commissioned.
Absolutely. How did that phased approach with replacing the hot water heaters get communicated to the tenants?
Actually, that's interesting because in each building, there is a backup and then there is the actual main system. So if you cut them over properly at nighttime, there should be no need, there should no challenge or no issues there. So what we wanted to do was to have a system, a construction profile in which nobody noticed that we were doing this work. That's the ideal, right? To get it done so that there's no problem and there's no challenge if someone wants to take a shower in the morning, no hot water. We wanted to really avoid having those challenges and just work smoothly through. I think the more challenging thing was getting the equipment, up through the elevators because we have to put an elevator out of service, get it up through there, down the hallway. We have to protect the hallways. So this has to be done at night and obviously be quiet while we're doing the work and then get this out to the roof and work on the roof. So that was actually a bit more of the challenge, for us. And so there was training of our guys to ensure, this is an old home, really be very sensitive about making noise, etc., because we want to avoid any issues and complaints.
That's awesome. I want to ask Stuart, what's your key takeaway from this project? If you had to do it over again, what's the one thing you wish you had known or that you're glad that went right on this project you'd want to repeat?
Well, I guess the biggest takeaway and the thing that went right, I commented about Adrian reaching out to me and it was through his tenacity and follow-up that we were able to communicate. But working with those folks as well as the rest of the team made this very, very, very successful. And I say it's a success and I can't stress it enough because with Mark and Drake and Richard and Chikisi, they all know the environment that we're working in downtown LA. It's a very compact area with an awful lot of units. To know that the residents were not disrupted, that they were completely satisfied because this is their home, that was an important takeaway for me and for us here at Retirement Housing Foundation. And I'm really pleased with the outcome that we received for the benefit of our residents. So thank you.
Thank you. Richard, what was the key success factor for you on this project?
Well, I think for Telecu, this was one of the largest multifamily properties that we have ever serviced in the ESA program. And I think with the relationship that Telecu had with RHF and with the gas company, it made for a great partnership. And I have to say, though, is that the RHF team at Angeles Plaza, without their help, without the site manager, without the maintenance team, we never would have been able to get into all those units and service all those customers. So,
absolutely. Well, I think there's a theme across all of your responses, which is really this, the role of the trusted advisor, in this case with SoCal Gas, helping to open that door, get everybody on the same page, develop a scope, simplify and internalize all the complexity that does exist, and make it so that Richard's team, the RHF team, with the capacity that they do have, had the confidence to pull the trigger, because they did have to make some investments alongside SoCalGas to pull this whole thing off. Thank you, everyone. I think this was a great discussion. And in case anyone in the audience wants to learn more about this project, RHF did produce a video case study that's linked on our website. That's LABBC.com. You're all probably familiar with that since you're on today's event. I encourage you to check it out. Thanks, everybody. That was fun.